African Republic, South Sudan, and Ethiopia and Eritrea, and then went on to the Arabian Peninsula and then to India, where you're seeing it right now. So here we had a large campaign across many countries. We had done resource material like posters and handbooks, got them translated in various languages, and the three teams, one in Ethiopia in the path of annularity in Lalibela, one in Nairobi in Kenya, and one in Arusha in Tanzania, who were transmitting the eclipse through the telescope, which we just finished seeing. The eclipse is finished in Africa now, and we handed over the eclipse to you guys now to watch. And very soon, I think in a couple of hours from now, the eclipse will then move on to Taiwan and then end in the Pacific Ocean. So in some sense, all of us, like Durgesh said, are stuck in our houses. Eclipse is something to be enjoyed together in public with your friends and family. Usually you would gather in huge numbers in public parks and planetaria to see it together. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we can't. But then because of that, I think something very nice happened, which is that a number of people across so many countries have made an effort to produce live feeds from the telescopes. And the fact that I can sit here in Cape Town and watch the eclipse progress like a Mexican wave, from Central Africa to East Africa to Dubai to Pakistan to India and then to Tibet and then China and then the rest of Southeast China and then Taiwan. And there are feeds from outside the path of annularity, from all the way from Russia in the north to Indonesia and South Korea and Vietnam. And the fact that I can see all these different feeds from across the world and see the eclipse progress bit by bit, where it leaves one place, it starts another place, etc. Kind of brings us all together in another sense, and I think it's really nice, and that's been happening as well.
So we are asking everybody how many eclipses you have seen in the past. So what is your count?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I want to make it a point to eat during the eclipse in front of everybody.
Yes, we invite everybody to eat. It's almost lunchtime, and there's no reason to not eat at this time. So let's do.
Please do eat and drink. So here is just morning for us here. I think there was an eclipse, the 1980 eclipse when I was in Chennai. Of course, was a disaster in terms of public relations. I know the government had told people not to go out of the houses, unfortunately, and everybody was indoors. I was not allowed to go see it by my family either, unfortunately. And then there was a partial eclipse later when I was in high school, which I saw and showed all my neighbors, in Chennai. But the total eclipse I saw, which I'll never forget, was in Kalpi in Uttar Pradesh in 1995. When I was doing my master's, we all took buses and went down and saw it, and that was just amazing. That happened during Diwali, and there were some 500 of us in this huge Maidan in Kalpi. People are shouting and screaming, we all college students, and eclipse progressed, and then some of us, with cameras and telescopes, and totality happened. It was in the belt totality, and then there's complete silence, right? Not just the entire world became silent because, but imagine 500 college students becoming completely silent and not shouting and screaming, because it was just completely awe-inspiring. I think somebody earlier mentioned as to what an experience it is. And in the past, and when I saw the total eclipse, it was one of the best moments in my life. But I could also begin to understand why cultures across the world were scared. If you do not understand what the eclipse is due to, it could be a scary experience. Because we know what it is and understand it is an awe-inspiring and an amazing experience. But it could be, you understand why it was scary to people, right? And then I saw the annular eclipse last year in December 26 from the path of annularity in Ooty from the Radio Astronomy Center of NCRA, which again was simply amazing. It was very different from total eclipse, and it was amazing in a very different way. And of course, we all seen enough lunar eclipses. The lunar eclipses are much more common, and we've seen a lot of them. And this is my first eclipse I'm seeing from across the world without leaving my living room.
That's a big array of experiences.
Yeah. Well, we all want to be eclipse chasers, right? So,
yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Let's move on to Professor Raichaudhuri. So, what about you? You also would have had your fair share of eclipses.
No, I'm not an eclipse chaser, but very much the same ones that Neeraj talked about. 1980, I remember. I did not listen to my parents. My mother did not want me to go out, but I did. But there also we had to watch it through television at that time. Actually, we were. I was in Calcutta at that time, and we did not have a very good view. The best view was 95. 95. Like Neeraj, I was in Rajasthan. In fact, from Ayuka, we had a whole big trip. Future director of Ayuka at that time was Naresh Dadhich. Naresh Dadhich's native village, Churu, in Rajasthan, was in the zone of totality, and a lot of us went together. And one of the things that I won't forget ever is the fact that this was the morning after Diwali, and the Diwali, and through the night we traveled in a bus through villages which were lit by these little diyas all over. And in the entire night, the little lamps were outlining all the little houses in the villages. And we went through there, and we reached this little village. And then in the morning, early morning, this whole spectacle, the first real eclipse of my life, was absolutely mind-blowing, because it was quite a long eclipse. And as you said earlier in this broadcast before, eclipses change your life. And every single eclipse, it's like seeing the Taj Mahal. You go there, and every time you go back, it surprises you. And every time you see an eclipse, it surprises you, because not because it is different, but it is almost. That's the closest to a religious experience I've had, and I'm not a religious man. And of course, you need to drink and eat during the eclipse, and we've been doing this, and we had very good food during that trip as well. But what happens in the eclipse is that you also look at nature itself, and nature stands still. Suddenly, light goes away, and the birds are unnerved. The animals are unnerved. They think that there's something unnatural is happening. And we know, of course, this is nothing unnatural. This is a natural thing. It's a shadow of the moon, but it hasn't happened very often. But that tells you, as you said before, why humans have been very afraid of it. I mean, we've known that this is the shadow of the moon for a long time. Aryabhatta in the 6th century worked it out, and Aryabhatta told us it is that. So it's not that we didn't know that this is. But then people tell us from myth, from all kinds of things, that it's going to be bad for us. The Rahu and the Ketu and all kinds of stories come from our myths. But all through our tradition, even our tradition, I'm not going to the Western tradition, even in Indian tradition, the mathematicians, the astronomers, even the astrologers like Aryabhatta, who was working out positions of the stars, the planets, etc., through mathematics, worked it out. I mean, it's a very rational explanation. The fact that it is a shadow, and the fact that it doesn't happen all the time, is fantastic. In the next 100 years from India, we will see another 5 eclipses. And so in my lifetime, if I stay in India, I might not see many. But of course, we are mobile, and as Neeraj pointed out, we can see now everything through the internet, and you can actually follow the whole thing. This is the first time, I think, such an eclipse is being followed across India like this. It's wonderful. I mean, I in the December eclipse too, I did not see so many feeds coming from this path, and the weather, I don't know, wasn't that good. But now suddenly it started off cloudy in many places, but it looks like we've started to see all this. I went on several TV channels today, in between talking to you in the morning, and it is amazing how much discussion on Indian TV channels is happening on the relation between the coronavirus and the corona of the sun. And these words get mixed up. Virus, somebody said from Madras, from Chennai, that the coronavirus will go away tomorrow, and it's gone viral. And the corona of the sun can be seen during eclipses, and the coronavirus. All are getting mixed up. And people latch onto words rather than concepts, I think. And the fact that somebody, some scientist, quote unquote, apparently said that the ultraviolet rays from the sun is going to come and kill the coronavirus today. And as Divya Oberoi said in the morning too, we don't get the ultraviolet rays from the sun. If we did, we would have skin cancer. The ozone layer's job is to stop the ultraviolet rays from the sun. In order to do ultraviolet astronomy, we have to send satellites up into space. Why would we send Astrosat up into space if we could get ultraviolet rays up on the Earth? So people are mind-bogglingly confused. People are confused. People think that 2 tulsi leaves put in my food is going to make it all right, and we can fight the evil demon with tulsi leaves. This is just amazingly mind-boggling dumb. And so the fact that we are just looking at a shadow, and under this shadow we've seen something that lasts a few hours, and the actual event lasts minutes, seconds, but it's beautiful. And why can't people just look at this event like a momentous event in their life? Happens once, twice, 3 times in there. I mean, I've known people who chase eclipses. Owen Gingerich, who I studied with at Harvard University, has seen 57 eclipses in his life, because he goes where the eclipses go. But if you stay in one place, in your lifetime, you'll see probably one, or even none, because at any place on the Earth, an eclipse happens, a total eclipse happens every 300 years or something like that. In the same country, maybe 10 times in a century. But if you can chase these eclipses, and nothing's happened to these people, they've chased eclipses all over the world. So all this discussion going on for many days about the fact that there are 2 eclipses, 2 annular eclipses within a few months, and that is why the coronavirus has come and it's going to go away. And people don't even think the fact that these 2 eclipses that you're seeing is from India only, and maybe Pakistan and some countries in the Middle East and Africa, as Neeraj pointed out. But this is a shadow that's moving around. And then you see the most people have died in Italy and in Spain and in England and the US. Poor guys, don't see the eclipse, but their people are dying because of us, because we are causing the coronavirus, because this moon shadow is falling on us. So I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's going on in all the TV channels right now, and I think we should stand up against it and tell people to just go out and see what's happening out there. That's wonderful.
Yeah, you mentioned the confusion between solar corona and the coronavirus, and we have somebody who studies corona of sun. So Dibyendu,
wonderful.
Yeah. So historically, eclipses have been important for development of astronomy. Several breakthrough experiments have happened during the eclipses. So, like helium was discovered during an eclipse, or so can you talk about how eclipses are used in astronomical research, or earlier were used before the advent of space era and things like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I'm happy to return back, and I've been following you folks. I think you're doing a wonderful job of showcasing this eclipse throughout the country. This is a great initiative, particularly because you're pulling in so many efforts from all around India. It's just great to see the enthusiasm. So to come back to your question, I think the most spectacular scientific success in terms of utilizing an eclipse for testing some of the ideas that we have developed is I think this eclipse expedition by Arthur Eddington to South Africa. I forget the exact year. I think somebody here may know about it.
1919.
1919. Yes, I think that was the first important test of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. And there are some amazing stories about this expedition where this folks went and they put up tents somewhere out in the wild, and then there's some issues with clouds, and they had 2 different locations that they had earmarked, but somehow at the last moment things magically worked out, and Arthur Eddington could do this measurements, and he came back to the UK and did the analysis, and that was the first confirmation of Einstein's theory of relativity. And this is a huge success, early success for Einstein. And this is, I mean, if you think of it, it's kind of funny because another important prediction of Einstein's general theory of relativity, which is the gravitational waves, was just tested just some time back, based on much more sophisticated instrumentation with a huge, big, interferometric detector, which is the LIGO network, which of course also IUTA is involved in, and many Indians are involved in. So that was one of the biggest scientific successes of experiments done during eclipses. Coming to the solar side, if you look at the corona, you mentioned work on the sun's corona. This is important from the perspective that the activity that is generated in the sun's corona and the evolution of the magnetic structure of the sun's corona. When the corona exists because of the sun's magnetic field and because of magnetic heating, the coronal temperatures rise to something about 1,000,000 degrees Kelvin. So this magnetic field evolution and the structure actually determines the environment in space. So there is something called space weather, and believe it or not, the environment in space changes, and these changes are governed by the sun. And it's the coronal dynamics that governs these changes. But observing the sun's corona is extremely difficult under normal circumstances, because the flux of photons, or the light, the intensity of light that comes from the sun's disk, the main part of the sun, is so much that it overwhelms the amount of light that comes from the corona, which is a very low density region surrounding the sun. Eclipses, where the moon basically completely covers the sun's disk and therefore stops the light from the disk to reach Earth, provides this wonderful natural opportunity for the corona to become visible, the faint light from the corona. And this is when we can actually test our theoretical ideas and the models for the evolution of the coronal structure, because during this total eclipses, you can actually make observations of the corona and test these theories out. So this is, I think, one of the great opportunities that eclipses provide. And so when you hear about astronomers and solar physicists chasing eclipses, it's not just about fun, it's actually about serious work, where they put up spectroscopic observations and other kind of observations, including now polarization observations to capture the magnetic field structure of the corona. And then they throw these observations out to theorists and modelers like us, who test our models during the eclipses. And we have done that quite successfully in the past as
well. We also have now Professor Dipankar Banerjee. So Dipankar,
yes,
yeah. So how was the eclipse from Nainital?
Yeah, it's just right now it is clearing out. It was all cloudy, and just last few minutes it has opened up now, and people are all outside. I just have to come in. So I took some pictures. So the feed, of course, we were all taking it from Hanle primarily. Aniket, I just sure, can you give me 5 minutes, because there is a call from, All India Radio. And if you just give me 5 minutes, I will come back.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
How are things in Kolkata, Dipendu?
So I was earlier with a Bengali news channel, 24 Ghanta. Then in between, my wife called me downstairs. So there was a break in the clouds, and we could see, like, just around noon. I think that's when we had kind of a maximum part of the partial eclipse that is from here. So we did get to see it, so 24 Ghanta was giving this live feed, and they had representatives from various parts of Bengal, and I was very happy to see the enthusiasm of people. So I think people in Bengal are actually enjoying this. And যদি এখানে কোনো বাঙালিরা এখন শুনছেন, তাহলে আপনাদের স্বাগত জানাই এখানে, নমস্কার। আশা করি আপনারা ইক্লিপস দেখছেন, এবং এখানে সমগ্র আছে, বাঙালি দীপঙ্কর আছে। আশা করি আপনারা এখান থেকে কিছু সায়েন্টিফিক তথ্য, বৈজ্ঞানিক তথ্য ইক্লিপস আপনারা জানতে পারবেন আজকে। আনন্দ করুন, ইক্লিপসের মজা লুটুন, এবং সায়েন্সকে আগে বাড়ান। Sorry, Anik, I went into a little loop in Bengali because, hoping that there's some Bengali viewers.
No, Dipendu, we are actually doing quite a lot of multilingual broadcasts here. I mean,
That's right. In India,
Shudhu Bangla ke Marathi, we've talked about, we've had many languages here covered, and we are going to try to see how many languages we can cover today.
I mean, this is so beautiful, right? I mean, in India, I mean, the diversity of India is, and diversity of people and the languages and our culture, and a phenomena such as this, which is shared by everybody, brings everybody together in spite of the differences, and it's so wonderful to see.
And wonderful, Deepinder, I wanted to point out, Sameer and Aniket, I would like everybody to go out if they're if the sun is shining there and no clouds, to look at the images of the eclipse under the trees, because the leaves act as pinhole cameras, and it is lovely out there. People are taking pictures and putting it on social media, and you can see, if you go under a tree that has dense leaves and the space between the leaves act as pinhole camera, you can see hundreds of eclipsed suns on the ground, on the roads. And it is lovely to see. So if you're near a tree, go and look at the eclipse on the ground.
Tara is Zameen pe, so our Tara is Zameen today. It's in shade. Lovely. So we have very a stellar range of astronomers here, both from solar physics and in general in astronomy. And we have 3 directors present at this moment. So let's again let's welcome, of course, Dr. Annapurni from Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and also Dipankar Banerjee will be finishing his call very soon, so he'll be with us sharing his experience from Nainital. Maybe in that moment, Dr. Annapurni could share what experience you had from Hanle and Kodaikanal and even Bangalore.
Yeah, hi everyone. So just completed the crossed over the maximum in Hanle. So we were watching from all sides. So in the beginning we had cloudy skies in Bangalore and Kodaikanal, but Hanle was very clear. So Hanle feed was going on pretty and full stream. And in actually what happens during total solar eclipse is all our campuses are very famous for pretty pictures of sun and the eclipse, etc. So we normally have a lot of people visiting Kodaikanal, Hanle, and Bangalore campus also. The lawns will be full of activity and everything. So with the situation, we hardly had anyone, just our own team setting up the instruments, etc. And our auditorium was converted into our war room, where we have the all the feeds coming in and etc. So we're monitoring Kodaikanal and Bangalore from here, and Hanle was also coming in. Kodaikanal cleared a little after some time, and Bangalore kept becoming cloudy. But Hanle we had a very good stream, and then completely it was clear, and except near the maximum we had a little bit of passing clouds were there, but then everything is okay. And we don't have too many people in the campus because of this pandemic. Otherwise, excitement is virtual, and every site we have about between 500 to 3,000 people watching the whole web stream. So coverage wise it's been very good, but you can't actually face to face feel the excitement and share the joy of actually seeing the eclipses minimal.
Sorry, so that all the outreach groups are taking so much efforts from all institutes and trying to put out feeds for everybody to see, particularly in these times when we are banned to go out from our houses even.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. We've just experienced annularity view from 2 feeds, and all of us had goosebumps and were going wow and enjoying the moment. But however, I'll mention that Hanle has been, I think, the most popular feed.
Yeah.
Most of the other people who promised feeds are running Hanle feeds, so we are at a lack of feeds in that way. However, of course, the most special thing that we have here is all the scientists who can put forward their views here on various aspects. In fact, I want to spring a question to those present. There have been some pictures taken with very good cameras and good telescopes involved. So are we also planning to do some analysis of those images and maybe look at the lunar profile, limb profile or something like that? or could it be a project for college students, undergraduates, etc.?
Yeah, so in our case, we have good pictures coming from Kodaikanal. The resolutions are high because it's coming from the solar tower telescope. The resolution is high, but then the coverage is, the eclipse coverage is only about 30, less than 30%. So you will not be able to see the rim of the sun or anything like that. So that is a high resolution picture where you can work on. But then the setup over here in Bangalore as well as in Hanle is not a high resolution picture. So we are not able to, I don't know how good the resolution will be to do any particular science with it. So that is the issue. We wanted to send across some good instruments from here to Hanle, transfer, so that we can actually set up them there, but then we could not even transport them. So the issues were there. So because of that, we could set up a structure to view it, but not of a science quality images could not be obtained. But otherwise is very well known for expeditions during eclipses. We have carried out several expeditions for which even Dipankar was, he was a member of these teams. And so it is historically we have been carrying out experiments. So he's a right person to speak more about the science which is being carried out. But we used to get coronal images, and also Dibyendu is there who would predict and model it and, predict how the solar corona is going to view during the eclipse. So they probably can say better. But right now, our instrumental setup is not the optimal to perform detailed science as such, because we haven't been able to go to this absolutely brilliant location with our instruments to set up because of the condition.
Let me bring back Neeraj. So Neeraj, Professor Shomak Rajudari earlier mentioned that there were we will get very few opportunities in our lifetime to watch either total or annular solar eclipses from India. So what can you tell us about the future total or annular eclipses from India?
Yeah, thanks, Aniket. I just want to add to what Shomak said about the eclipse just being a shadow. People say, don't be afraid of your own shadow. And I think we should also stop being afraid of the moon shadow apart from our own. India is not going to have many eclipses very soon, unfortunately. This is going to be the last one for quite some time, for next 10 or 11 years. The next solar eclipse, which will be seen in India, is going to be on May 21st, 2031, 11 years from now. And that will be an annular eclipse. The annular path will cut through Kerala and Tamil Nadu, like it did in December. And the rest of the country will see a partial eclipse. And then that is in 2031. 3 years after that, in 2034, on March 20th, there'll be a solar eclipse. The totality will pass through like the northernmost parts of India. The rest will see a annular eclipse. The next proper total eclipse going through India is going to be in 2064. And so that's quite far away, actually. And therefore, for the next few years, we will be reduced to seeing eclipses through live feeds of other countries. And I think that's the next best thing. I just want to add to something Dibyendu had said about scientific advances made in eclipses. And he talked about, advances made for science in terms of, theory of gravity or helium discovery. I wanted to quickly add, if I may, an important eclipse for outreach and for making modern astronomy consistent with older astronomy, right? So there was this famous astronomer called Raghunath Achari working in the Madras Observatory in the late 1800s when it was under the British. And he came from a family of Panjang makers, or almanac makers, traditional Indian almanacs, right? And he also knew modern astronomy well. He was a trained astronomer. He then found that the tables used by traditional astronomers in India were no longer accurate because the numbers they used were from observations long back. And so he had held huge debates with the almanac makers, Panjang makers, saying, look, update your tables. We'll provide you with modern values for the tables. A lot of them refused. And the huge debate, which of course ultimately was settled, and they did update the tables of the Panjangs following him. But one of the ways he did it was very nice. He said, look, there's going to be a solar eclipse in 1868 and 1871, which will be seen in southern India. And he said, look, your predictions say that this is how the eclipse will look and it will appear at this time. We say, based on these predictions using modern values of planetary positions, that it will occur at this time. And then he told the people, look, I'm telling the public at large, not just astronomers, the public at large, just go out and verify for yourself with your own eyes which one is correct, right? And I think that's very interesting, because it's one of the first times in modern Indian history where science was kind of became part of the public domain, and the public were told that they could themselves verify predictions and see which theory was right and which was wrong and so on. So I think that is something I wanted to mention, which I thought was very interesting. But coming back to your question, yes. So this is going to be the last solar eclipse for the next 11 years, unfortunately. And that's why this is very important. That's why, having live feeds from across the world is very interesting. I was just looking at the live feeds. The Abu Dhabi feed shows that the eclipse is just about over in the Middle East. The feed from Taiwan shows that the eclipse is starting. The moon is just entering the sun's disk now in Taiwan. And the feeds from farther south, like Indonesia, Malaysia, the eclipse is yet to start, right? So, and we are right in the middle of it in India. So, yeah, that's interesting too.
So, Dipankar, while you were away, it was mentioned that you have earlier led IIT teams which went to different places to study solar corona during eclipses. So, can you tell about these expeditions?
Sure. So actually, I have few images which probably give a better overview of this. So if you can see my screen, is it visible?
Yeah, but you have to maximize
Yeah, my PowerPoint has gone somewhere, so I have to bring that in. Yeah. So are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So there are two things I wanted to highlight. One was since Dipendu was there in the panel, he didn't talk much about his own work and why we really wait for the total solar eclipse occasions and so on. One thing is sun is a magnetic star, and this overall magnetic field structure of the corona we do not have a very clear understanding. So this is called the global field of the corona at a large scale. And some of these work actually it's happening at SESI Kolkata. This is ISER Kolkata, and Dipendu is leading this bunch of young kids who are doing very nice work. Which what they do is they predict the solar eclipses image how it will look before the eclipse happens. So this is nice because based on our theoretical understanding and observations in the previous day of eclipse, they predict what would be the picture of the global field. And this is again another example of course, in the prediction, there are many people across the globe, and Dipendu is one of the many. And as you can see, with this image taken on 21st August 2017 eclipse and 2019 eclipse, and the theoretical predictions, how it was. If you flip-flop, you see this. I just want to, because I'm getting this opportunity, so again say a few things about why people are scared about eclipses. I mean, what is the history and why it is that we have to be so scared about history? I think it's just nothing but about darkness. I mean, suddenly if you find that middle of the day things are getting so dark, so it's just this attitude. So if you go back to the historical pictures and paintings, you will see that either somebody is eating the moon or somebody is eating the sun, big demon or some animals. And even during the eclipses, in the lower image what you see from National Geographic is that people used to burn certain objects. So they put fire, they will make a lot of noises to scare this, because it is something which is unnatural. So but the point is today in the modern day we know why eclipses happen. In those times, people didn't know what is the real cause of the eclipses. So this is, I think, a big message which we need to do. Thankfully, and since morning, I was in a Zoom session and there were more than 100 kids, and I was continuously interacting with them. I was eating, in front of them, having tea, coffee, and telling them, how to look at the eclipse, how to make a pinhole camera, and so on. I think this is a very important exercise we have to do. And I'm thankful for ASI for doing this. So this is my experience. Again, we are fortunate to be privileged to be able to travel to, distant locations with big expeditions. But of course, we do some science out of this total eclipses as well. So this is one example where we were a team from India led by Professor Jagdeep Singh and our former director, Professor Siraj Hassan. And I was somewhat younger at that time. You can see that group picture. And we had two, 40 centimeter telescope. We had a spectroscopic arrangement. So this is what we observed in that. So there is something called a red and green emission from the solar corona. This you can only see during a total solar eclipse. In fact, incidentally, these experiments which we ran more than 10 years back actually gave us the confidence to build a coronagraph for space. In fact, the Aditya L1 coronagraph is going to have these two spectral lines as a main source of observation. So of course we could only observe less than a minute of total solar eclipse while we were in China. But then in Aditya L1, when we are there at L1 location, we will have these artificial total eclipse conditions continuously for as long as we want, at least for 5 years. That's the thing. So that was way back in 2009. I didn't talk about even earlier. Actually, I was fortunate, one of the few who was flying with the Indian Air Force aircraft in 1995 from Agra. We were with the Air Force team and looking at the total solar eclipse. So that was way back in 1995. And then 2010, just after the China eclipse, I was again very fortunate to travel all across to the other part of the globe. This is called Easter Island, almost middle of nowhere. No land, the nearest land, it takes about 4 hours to fly. And this is a mystic island, and we were fortunate to go. I think Shumokda was just mentioning that we are some of our crazy guys. We are also called eclipse chasers. We chase eclipse because if you are in one location, you won't get to see many eclipses. So really you have to travel across and see, these eclipses. This is the island which I was talking about, quite a mysterious and historical island. Still people do not understand, this is more than 1,000 years old. These statues which are there in those islands, how it came. So the point is, we scientists are really, really privileged, in the name of science, which of course excites us, but it also gives us the opportunity to travel across the globe. This was the team again for this eclipse expedition. Even the Indian ambassador from Chile, he flew into this island together with us. So this was a very, very exciting moment. Last year, along with the two other panelists today, Durgesh and the Bendu, we were fortunate to travel to Argentina in July. So this movie is actually taken from, at the other side from Chile, because there is an observatory and so on. So but it was a spectacular sight. So this is my real experience. There is again a total solar eclipse in the end of this year in December in Argentina. Some of us were planning to go. I think I'm sure Shumok there was also planning to go, but I think under current circumstances it may not happen. So again, it's just our excitement, when we really enjoy what we do, and that also allows us to, travel across, excitements with others.
Thanks, Dipankar. I think now it's time for our regional plugs. So we have several Bengali speakers. We can start with Bengali, a short plug about what we have witnessed so far in Bengali. Anyone can take. Anyone. So, Dipendu, you want to go for that?
Yeah, sure. খানিকক্ষণ আগে আমি বাংলাতে বললাম, আবার বলতে পারি। তো মানে পশ্চিমবঙ্গে আমরা ইক্লিপসের যে পুরো মজাটা সেটা আমরা পাইনি, এই লাইভ ফিডে সেটা পাওয়া গেল, কারণ এখানে হানলের থেকে নর্থ ইন্ডিয়া বিভিন্ন জায়গা থেকে আমরা দেখতে পেলাম এই অ্যানুলারিটিটা, যেটা খুব একটা রেয়ার। চাঁদ সূর্যের ভেতর দিকটা ঢেকে দিতে পারে, কিন্তু সামনে বাইরের দিকে একটা ছোট্ট রিম, একটা মানে ঠিকরে বেড়ে আলো মানে আলোর একটা রিং, যেটাকে আমরা অ্যানুলার মানে জিওমেট্রিক্যাল একটা অ্যানুলার শেপ নেয় আর কি। তো এই ইক্লিপসটা একটা অসাধারণ একটা এক্সপেরিয়েন্স, যেটা আমরা পাবো না। সুতরাং আপনারা যেটা আজকে দেখতে পেলেন কিছুটা পশ্চিমবঙ্গ থেকে, কিছুটা পার্শিয়ালি, আপনারা যারা অনলাইনে আছেন তারা একটা বিস্ময়কর একটা ঘটনা দেখলেন, যেটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি কমপ্লিটলি ফিজিক্স দিয়ে আমরা এক্সপ্লেন করতে পারি। এবং এই ধরনের ফেনোমেনা থেকে আমরা অনেক রকম সায়েন্স বার করতে পারি, অনেক রকম সায়েন্টিফিক থিওরি টেস্ট করতে পারি, যেটা দীপঙ্কর খানিকক্ষণ আগে বললো। সুতরাং এটার একটা সাধারণ একটা ভালো লাগার ব্যাপার আছে, একটা বিস্ময়কর ব্যাপারও আছে। এর মধ্যে কিন্তু একটা গভীর একটা সায়েন্টিফিক পার্সিউট আছে ইক্লিপসে, যেটা আমরা কয়েকশো। তো আপনাদের অভিনন্দন, আপনারা যারা ইক্লিপস দেখলেন, এবং ধন্যবাদ আমাদের সঙ্গে থাকার জন্য।
Thanks, Bindu. We also have Professor Prajwal Shastri who has joined us now. Prajwal, we can see you somewhere. You are somewhere outside. Can you tell us where you are and what did you observe today? Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
So I was very pleasantly surprised by the clouds parting, because the bureau had predicted cloudy weather here in Bengaluru, where I am. So right at the moment, I'm at a very historical, geologically significant place, namely Lal Bagh. I'm standing on the big rock. You can see the Kempegowda Gopura in the background. And I'm watching the eclipse from here. It's of course coming close to release, to final contact. There are a few friends around me. Earlier in the day, there were about 30 people, which is nice. But it's also very sad, because Bengaluru, which is meant to be, which calls itself a modern city, an IT city, a science city before that. In fact, we just celebrated the centenary of Sound. Last week we celebrated his centenary, and he was a person who played a major role in crafting Bengaluru. Almost nobody out, everybody's in, shops are closed, restaurants are closed, and everyone is huddled in. The media has been the dominant theme over the last couple of days, so that it's insight, but at the same time there's a lot of sadness and disappointment at what is happening. Actually, the disappointment was in one way expected, because we were expecting the weather to be bad, but the weather has been extremely cooperative. So it's a beautiful sunny day, and I can still see the eclipse with my glasses. But yeah, we also did our best to try and persuade people to use safety glasses and goggles, otherwise to just stand next to a tree, because the sun is high in the sky. So just stand next to a tree and watch the effects of the pinhole camera images on the ground before the eclipse and during the eclipse, where we see the beautiful crescent sun images. Did you have any questions?
Aniket, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So
did anyone have any questions?
It's revealing to see such a state of misinformation amongst the people, where they're missing out on such a great site. And in fact, Bangalore is in between it's getting a very similar phase as compared to December as well. So it would have been amazing if people watched it
yes,
that time, and now also, of course, following social distancing. But that's a sad state. However, we have been successful in doing this over the internet to many people, and they've been asking excellent questions. If there's any kind of information that you may want to give in, let's say, in Kannada to the people who are watching, that'd appreciate that.
Okay. ಹವಾಮಾನ ತಜ್ಞರು ಅವರ ಹೇಳಿಕೆ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಮೋಡ ಕವಿಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಆದ್ರೆ ಮೋಡ ಕವಿದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದೇ ಕ್ಷಣ ಎಲ್ರೂ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಬಂದು ಈ ಗ್ರಹಣದ ಕೊನೆ ಹಂತವನ್ನ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ವೀಕ್ಷಿಸಿ. ಖಂಡ ಸೂರ್ಯ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾಣುವಂತದ್ದು ಬಹಳ ಅಪರೂಪ. ಖಂಡ ಸೂರ್ಯವು ಬರೀ ಗ್ರಹಣ ಆಗುವಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಾಣುತ್ತದೆ, ಬರೀ ಚಂದ್ರ ಸೂರ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಅಡ್ಡ ಬರುವಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಾಣುತ್ತದೆ. ಚಂದ್ರವು ಆ ಆಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತದೆ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಸೂರ್ಯ ಆ ಆಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಿಸೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಅಪರೂಪದ ದೃಶ್ಯ ಇದು. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ರು ಹೊರಗೆ ಬನ್ನಿ. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಬಿಸಿಲು, ಮೋಡಗಳು ಆಚೆ ಸದ್ದಿವೆ. ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಮರ ಇದ್ರೆ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಎಲೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಮರ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅಂಥ ಮರದ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಿ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಇಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಖಂಡ ಸೂರ್ಯದ ಬಿಂಬಗಳು ನೆಲದ ಮೇಲೆ ಚೆಲ್ಲಿರೋದನ್ನ ನೋಡಿ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು. ಅಥವಾ ಸೂರ್ಯನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಕನ್ನಡಿ ಮೂಲಕ ಸೂರ್ಯನ ಬಿಂಬವನ್ನು ಬೀರಿ ನೋಡಿ. ಆ ಖಂಡ ಸೂರ್ಯದ ಆಕಾರ ಎಷ್ಟು ಅಪೂರ್ವವಾಗಿದೆ, ಅದ್ಭುತವಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ.
We have the Khanda Surya Akara, and we can still see feeds from various other places. And I hope you enjoyed it through your solar eclipse goggles, although we couldn't really see anything much in Pune here.
I see. Okay. Yeah, here it's wonderful. In fact, it's better than what it was during December. I wasn't here in December. I'd gone to the area of the totality, but here in Bengaluru, it was the weather didn't cooperate at all. Whereas today, it's just beautiful out here right now.
Right. Yeah, we all wish we could have been outside and get some fresh breeze.
Yeah.
Raining in Pune here.
Yeah.
But, we do have some good feeds, and I think in the eastern countries we are having annularities now. We're trying to get you the feeds right now. Thanks, Prajal, for joining in live from live location, not just from your office.
Yeah, good to see Prajal actually.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So lovely. I think the shadow is now traveling more towards the eastern regions, and it is just past max time in Kolkata and the eastern Seven Sisters states. So we have some feeds. Hanle is still showing a nice crescent, and hopefully we'll get some feeds from Taiwan and later from Singapore and Japan, which will show us another crescent, or another ring. While crossing our fingers, we can shift back to our other experts. If there are anything special that you would like to say at this moment, when we have crossed over, the shadow has crossed over the length of India, breadth of India, and reaching the east.
I found Dipankar's presentation very, very fascinating, the work that was done with previous eclipses. And we still have Dipendu and Durgesh on here. I would like them to also talk about these experiments, because you were there in many of these experiments, Dipendu, in South America, for example. And so can you share a little more? One of the things I found fascinating was, of course, Aditya L1, which we are going to launch next year, is going to have a perpetual eclipse for 5 years.
Right.
And we are going to make an eclipse. We'll make sure Aditya L1 does not eat or drink during that 5-year eclipse. But the fact that we're going to have this wonderful event that is linked to the picture Dipankar showed from the eclipse expedition in China. Do you have talk a little more about it? I think it was very fascinating.
I mean, so my first eclipse was when I was 7 years old, and this I don't really have a very good memory in general, but I really remember this because this is 1980, I think, and I grew up. I was born in Bihar, Jamshedpur. I grew up. My childhood was spent in Odisha, and then I moved to Bengal. So I was in Odisha then. I remember we went on a trip to Konark, and we saw the total eclipse in 1980 from Konark, and I have not forgotten that. I had this vague memory of something absolutely wondrous. And then, I mean, believe it or not, the next total eclipse that I actually saw was last year in Argentina. And this was very special because by then, I had become a scientist and a solar physicist, and The earlier one, I was just a child. And this was a wonderful opportunity because before we traveled to Argentina, we actually modeled, we developed models for the evolution of the magnetic structure of the corona. And we tested this model, we made a prediction for the eclipse. And then we traveled to Argentina, Dipankar was there, Durgesh was there, and we actually observed the eclipse, and much of our predictions actually also came true. And this is like the development of scientific ideas and scientific theories is an ongoing process. You don't necessarily get it right. We are not magicians. We are scientists. And we learn from our mistakes. And this eclipse has sort of provided us with an opportunity to improve our understanding and the science, tweak our models to tune it towards getting it right. With the idea, the eventual idea that when you do get it right, we should be able to make forecasts for the space environment, which is important for protecting our satellite-based assets like telecommunications, GPS navigational networks, weather satellites, which is India's is really dependent on right now. But the eclipses only provide you with very rare and sparse opportunity to develop your understanding and test these models. So one of the ideas of the Aditya L1 solar mission, which is India's first satellite, which is going to be launched next year, in which many institutions like IIA, IUCA, PRL, CECI as a Kolkata, ISRO are involved in, is to actually continuously observe the corona. And the corona is sort of the lower boundary of the solar system. And anything that goes on in the corona eventually determines the conditions of the solar system. And so this continuous observation of the sun's corona through, for example, the one of the instruments, which is the variable emission line coronagraph, of which Dipankar is the science lead. So the idea is to cover the sun's surface with the artificial disk in front of the telescope, so that you can continuously observe the thin layer of the outer solar corona. And from there, we can make various observations. We can make observations, spectroscopic observations, at the waves, the density profile, the temperature of the sun's corona, the velocity. We can measure the velocities of the plasma, the million degree plasma in the sun's corona. We can also, based on certain measurements, figure out how the magnetic structures form and evolve and give rise to this massive solar storms, which can impact satellites which are orbiting Earth. So these are some of the fantastic opportunities that Aditya L1 satellite is going to present. And of course, Durgesh, who I don't see now, who's at IUCA, is leading the development of the Solar Ultraviolet Imaging Telescope. This is also a very unique instrument in the sense that it will be imaging the sun in a certain range of ultraviolet wavelengths, which you do not get low down on Earth. You have to be outside the Earth's atmosphere, because the Earth's upper atmosphere absorbs much of it. And because the Earth's upper atmosphere absorbs much of this radiation, it also plays a very important role in driving the upper atmospheric dynamics and the climate system. So this very important instrument that's being built at IUCA will also provide a long-term measurement of the ultraviolet radiation from the sun, which will play a very important role in feeding into climate models. And also, of course, it will also make other important observations. For example, the energy transfer and the dynamics in the lower solar chromosphere. There are also instruments which are in situ instruments, which will measure the properties of space at the place where the satellite is located, which is at Lagrange point L1, somewhere close to the Earth, but in the Sun-Earth line. And so from these measurements, we can figure out what space environmental conditions exist near Earth. And therefore, based on this, we can make forecasts for space weather. So this is a very important investment that India has made in this Aditya L1 solar satellite, and it's amazing in the sense that in the foothills of along the same lines of the AstroSat satellite, multiple different educational institutions are involved and multiple students are involved in building this satellite. This is truly a national effort, and I think we are very proud to be associated with this. And I'm glad that you brought this up on the occasion of this very huge.
Thanks, Dipendu. I remember last year during during the annular eclipse, we were in Kerala actually doing a solar physics workshop there, and so many students showed so much interest. And in general, the crowd, the parents in the crowd were also asking how their children could in the future join solar or any kind of astrophysics. So I think such events do have their good positive effect. And also in these events, we should talk about the modern way we look at the sun. So thanks for sharing these details with us. And Kerala reminds me that Dr. Annapurni is from Kerala. So I have two requests to you. One is maybe if you could say something about eclipses in Malayalam, since you're trying to make it as multilingual as possible. But other than that also, since you also sometimes work on stars, so there's a question from the internet asking if such eclipses also happen for other stars. So, Dr. Annapurni, are you around to answer this?
Yeah, I'm around. Yeah. Hi, Samir. Yeah. So, just a few things on Malayalam for that matter. മലയാളത്തിൽ അവിടെ അസ്ട്രോണമി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നൈറ്റ് ടൈം അസ്ട്രോണമി ആസ് വെൽ ആസ് ഡേ ടൈം അസ്ട്രോണമി, അത് രണ്ടും പ്രചാരത്തിലുണ്ട്. ആൻഡ് കുട്ടികൾ സ്കൂളിൽ പഠിക്കുന്ന കുട്ടികൾ തന്നെ, കോളേജ് സ്റ്റുഡൻസ് എല്ലാവരും തന്നെ ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ഉള്ള ഒരു ഏരിയ ആണ്. ആൻഡ് അതുകൂടാതെ തന്നെ അവയർനെസ്സും ഒരുപാട് തന്നെ ഉണ്ട് അവിടെ. ആൻഡ് കഴിഞ്ഞ ഡിസംബറിൽ കേരളത്തിൽ കൂടുതൽ ഡിസ്ട്രിക്ട്സ് ഈ ആനുലാർ കാണാമായിരുന്നു. അപ്പൊ അതിന്റെ തന്നെ ഒരുപാട് അവയർനെസ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, ഒരുപാട് വർക്ക്ഷോപ്സുകൾ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അങ്ങനെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റീസ്, കോളേജസ് എല്ലാം തന്നെ നല്ലോണം സപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു ഏരിയ ആണ് ആസ്ട്രോഫിസിക്സ്. അയ്യൂക്കടെ തന്നെ റിസർച്ച് സെന്റേഴ്സ് ഉണ്ട്, കൊച്ചിൻ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി തന്നെ ഉണ്ട്. എല്ലാ സ്കൂളുകളും കോളേജുകളും അത് പ്രോത്സാഹനം ഉണ്ട് അതിന്. ആൻഡ് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി ആയിട്ട് തന്നെ അവര് ഓർഗനൈസ് ചെയ്ത് വ്യൂയിങ് അങ്ങനെ തന്നെ നടത്തുന്നുണ്ട്. കൂടാതെ തന്നെ ഇങ്ങനെ എക്ലിപ്സ് ടൈമിൽ ഇത് ചെയ്യരുത് അത് ചെയ്യരുത് അങ്ങനെ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു അവയർനെസ് കൂടുതലാണ്. ആൾക്കാർ അങ്ങനെ കാര്യമായിട്ട് ഫോളോ ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല. ആഹാരം കഴിക്കാൻ പാടില്ല, അങ്ങനെ പുറത്ത് വരരുത്, ആൾക്കാർ നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നുണ്ട്. സോ പുറത്ത് അങ്ങനെ ആ സ്റ്റേറ്റിൽ തന്നെ ആൾക്കാർ ഈ ഇങ്ങനത്തെ വിചാരങ്ങളിൽ പെടാതെ കൂടുതലായിട്ട് പ്രോഗ്രസീവായിട്ട് കാണുന്നുണ്ട് അവിടെ. ആൻഡ് കുട്ടികളും സ്റ്റുഡൻസും കോളേജുകളും ആക്ടിവിറ്റീസും നടത്തുന്നുണ്ട് എക്ലിപ്സും ആൻഡ് ഓൾസോ സ്റ്റാർസിനെ പറ്റി. Then I mean that's all I have to say for the Malayalam thing. And for the star, of course eclipses happen, so it's wonderful. We have stars which is like the sun is a single star, but then you have stars when they are born, they can also be born as binaries, so one star going around the other. And in which case what happens is if the two stars are in your plane, then obviously one has to go in front of the other, right? So those systems definitely bring out eclipses. So they are called eclipsing binaries. So these eclipsing binaries have light curves, typical light curves, periodic light curves are found, and many such systems are studied, and which are very, very important to understand and measure the fundamental properties of the binaries. And they also help us to calibrate our mass radius relation, etc. So fundamental relations are also calibrated using the eclipsing binaries. So eclipsing binaries are definitely there, and the eclipsing is part of it. You actually get both the eclipses, the big eclipse and the small eclipse. So detailed studies are definitely done using them. Does that answer your question, Samir?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So
Samir, can I bring in a different topic here? So I was looking at the comments. And I think at some point in time, when you did not have any women astronomers in this list of
must have been a very little time.
Yes, there was a comment, and this comment was, "Why are there no women astronomers? Why are there no women scientists here?" So I think this is an important comment. We should not brush it under the carpet. Well, there are some right now. I think we should talk a little about what are the astronomy institutions? I mean, this is a problem in the sense that we astronomers, physicists, we acknowledge that there are very few women scientists in India. This is not just a problem in India. This is a problem, in much of the world, including in the US, by the way, about the numbers I'm aware of in the US. But we are very conscious about it, and especially the Astronomical Society of India. I don't see Anupama, who's actually the president. She's a woman scientist. She's in fact the president of the Astronomical Society of India. I don't see her here today. But nonetheless, we are, the Astronomical Society of India has a panel which is devoted to looking at these issues and try to address it in a way that we can encourage more women astronomers, women scientists to come up and take up the sciences. Maybe we could discuss a little bit, maybe Shomak and Arnapurni, maybe even Priya, they can talk a little bit about their perspectives on how we're dealing with this and moving forward. How are we encouraging diversity in astronomy?
Well, I mean, this is, I think you highlighted a very important point. I mean, just the participation of some of the major Indian astronomers, women astronomers today in this webcast shows that that there are leading women in Indian astronomy. But I think in general, what has happened is that, I mean, we are in India, the number of women who go into science in general follows the trend in the world of in physics. We see worldwide 20 to 30% of students in universities in physics and mathematics departments, much higher in biology. We see a progression in which there are fewer women in the faculty positions and in top directorial positions, even fewer. Happens all over the world. And this certainly is something that we have to reverse. We have to bring in more opportunities for women. And just today, you saw some of the best participants in every way in this discussion. Just brought in the fact that I think gender should not be an issue in science, but it is, and it's not just in science, in many other fields. And we have to make sure to find out, and this is what this group in ASI has done very well, is to find out what the typical problems are in the life of a girl, a woman, in coming into sciences and staying in sciences till the very end, and making it to the top, and then to figure out whether we are doing enough to encourage people to come in. I think an event like this is very good. If I see 4,000 or 5,000 people watch today this webcast, I'm sure half of them are women, and they should feel that the opportunities in science in general and education are there us to encourage people to come into science.
Thank you. Maybe Arnapurni, if you want to add your own perspectives to that, that'd be nice actually for whoever is listening.
Yeah, so thank you for this is definitely an important point. And as a woman, it is not so easy to rise up in any career for that matter, and particularly in STEM. And there is definitely a kind of a feel or some complex at some point developing, saying that, am I good enough? So that should not be there at all. So when you are even writing an entrance exam to any kind of courses, you feel that, oh, maybe boys would do better than me. So no, definitely not. The girls are definitely good. So the complex should not be there. The girls have to also feel that I can definitely do it, kind of a thing. And second, recent years, you can definitely see more and more number of girls coming into even engineering education, IITs. The fraction of girls are still much less in any courses like that. And even if you look at mathematics, still we'll have to push. People have to more, fraction has to increase definitely over there. And that is to even into the getting into the stream. And then second, sustaining your presence in that field requires a lot of support from the family also, because many things come in your way. So as when you pass out of your post-graduation, the parents start thinking about marriage more than the fact that how will I make my kid or a daughter get into a PhD or a science career. More than that, the thinking is coming from how do you get married. And of course, social pressure is there. That question keeps coming. Oh my God, your daughter is not married? So marriage becomes the priority when compared to continuation of the education. In many cases, you have to literally fight with the family saying that, no, I want to continue my studies. I don't want to get married. So that is definitely a social awareness has to be there. Marriage comes only when a person is ready for it, not because society decides that a person should get married. So that is a difficult thing. And of course, that's not something bad for a person to happen. You can definitely get married. But the problem is that additional responsibilities, additional division of time against people starts. So in order to have a focused, dedicated time to do research or dedicated to time to do solve a problem, chase up your passion, you have limited time, because that time everybody has 24 hours a day. So you have to slice that time you have against different priorities. And you cannot deprive someone of your attention who is literally asking for your attention. So it becomes an overwhelming task on the person to carefully discipline yourself to make sure that you take up a problem and address it and complete it. But all that I can tell you is that people who somehow wade through that and become, get married, you have family or to look after your parents-in-law, your own parents, your kids, everybody together. So you get more and more disciplined at it. You are focused, you are fighting, and your 24 hours is split into too many slices, which, partition according to whatever is the need. So you have only one small partition for yourself to do research. And unless and until you're disciplined and focused, that never gets done. So if you look at people who have been able to do all this way through this thing, the strength, or the people, the women who go through this and come out, it's actually quite a bit of a struggle. But then without focus and without discipline, this doesn't get done. It's a huge amount of discipline yourself to get it done. And second thing is, you might have to stop many things which you wanted to do otherwise. You can't. You just don't have time. So focus on whatever, the most important thing and get it done. So for a person, for a woman to attend to so many things and still do it is because at home priority will be that, oh my God, my favorite dish is not made. Mm-hmm. Or someone will come and say that, oh my God, how is your house looking like this? For that person, the priority is that. For a woman who's handling multiple things, nobody looks at that. So that's very strange. Society does not understand that. So somebody to wade through this is not very easy. And at many points, you will think that, oh my God, why am I struggling with so many things? So no is not the answer. Don't stop it. Don't stop it, and let other people who are asking for share, let them know what is your passion, and tell them that, look, I will give you a little less time than what you actually are demanding, because I want to take that bit of small part to do what I want to do. And when please be happy, because I also need to be happy. I also want to do it. So share the excitement, make them also feel that, I want to do this because I am passionate about it. I am also letting you do whatever you're passionate about it. So why don't you let me also do what I'm passionate about? So you have to share the excitement. Let them think that, yes, that person also needs time and dedication. And so it's like a game, but then you have to take everybody along. You cannot stop your personal life because you're doing research. Everything has to go together. It's a package deal.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Annapurni, for sharing this. Yeah. So, I think Annapurni says the challenges that a women scientist faces are probably somewhat more than a man faces and a man faces. And this is something that is not nice, and we should be all aware of this in terms of providing an equal opportunity to everybody. I don't know that Priya has anything to add.
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
This is something we all like to talk about. And Yeah, so even when the sessions, thanks Dipendra for bringing out this topic. This is an important one. And when the thing started in the beginning itself, I noticed that yes, the number of females on this was very, very little. And probably we should have, on behalf of POAC, we should have been careful to see to it that there was a balance. But it was slightly this thing. But yeah, I would say that the problem is a threefold problem. The first problem is the initiation problem, in the sense the social problem that people think that girls can't do physics and maths, and hence they don't initiate girls into physics and maths or astronomy for that matter. And so that's the initiation problem. The other problem is after the girl goes through it, right? She still says she likes it, she does it. Then what happens is that then they comes up with the challenges, right? So if you have a student, a boy with the same kind of challenges, he's not going to face these kind of challenges. He's not going to prove how well he does time management and home management and all these managements. The girl has to all the time prove that she's going to be doing all that, right? And often I always try to do this, that, a lot of girls are given the idea that if you want to be a true professional, then you cannot get married, you cannot have children, you have to sacrifice. And it's really good that today the women we had on the panel, whether it's Annapurni or Prajwal or Harvinder or even me, all of us are mothers, right? So it's not that girls have to be told that you have to sacrifice, motherhood or a personal life just because for the cause of science, right? A balance is possible. And I think the most positive message that can be given to girls are role models, right? If girls actually see other women who are managing it, right? Then they realize that, it's not such a big deal. Yeah, XYZ has managed it, so what's the big deal? I do not need to sacrifice everything so that I get it. I can still have it all, right? So I think as we are building up this, set of role models, which we have even in the Indian astronomy community, I think that's a very positive message that's going out to girls, because they can actually see women who are actually doing it. I agree also with what Annapurni said, that for women it's a tougher deal because they have to prove that in spite of everything, they will, squeeze out the time, etc., and do it. While a man need not be so disciplined, right? Because he doesn't have to do this kind of balance. So that it's agreed, it's a much tougher job for women, but there is hope. And like I said, the role models are the message that we can give to the younger generation, that it's all very doable. So I think that's what's important. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Priya. I think it's a difficult topic to bring up, but I think it's important that with so many listeners, I think we talk about difficult topics so we can acknowledge the problem and address it. I'm sorry, Samir, for veering off, but I think you can now take over and take us to the rest of the eclipse. Thank you, everybody.
One of the highlights of this webcast, so it's not just aimed just to show people an eclipse, it's also to inspire people to join science, people of all ages, genders, etc., to join science or at least develop a scientific mentality. And these problems need to be highlighted as well, because that's what science does. It shows off its own problems, its own faults, etc., and then gets rid of them. So rather than hiding things, any other fields. So I think that's been really enlightening, and I can see a lot of comments also thanking us for this discussion. Hopefully this has been inspiring to boys as well as girls, especially with lady astronomers joining in this discussion later. Because I'll just take a moment to say that there was no bias in choosing lady astronomers. It was only a matter of what time they were available, and therefore you might have found a little while when there were no ladies on the screen. Anyway, so I draw your attention back to the eclipse, and as Neeraj had been telling us that the eclipse is being seen over a large part of the world, and in the east, in the African region, it has been over for a while now. India is just about to go out. The moon is just about to go out from the sun's limb, and you can see the feed at top. IIA Hanle continues to be our best feed today, where only a slight part of the sun is hidden. However, we have feeds from China and Taipei in Taiwan, where we have two lovely feeds, both showing a lovely crescent sun. And both of them are going to hopefully come close to the annularity very soon. So we'll keep looking at that. Of course, in India, the feed will end about 20-25 minutes from now, when the moon is completely out of the sun's face, and we'll have the eclipse over. So we have some time for discussions to continue. And I think Neeraj has something to say about eclipses being used, and something about an eclipse on Mars. So Neeraj, can I get you back here?
Yeah, I think my video is off. You may need to turn it on again.
Oh, okay. Please.
Yeah. So thanks everybody in the panel for bringing up the issue of gender. I think it's very important. I'm very happy we had this discussion. And it's not just gender. We want astronomy and all of sciences to be accessible to everybody, which is also why we have multilingual talks today. We want diversity and equity, not just in gender, but also in caste and class and in language and so on. And I think I think we heard some really awesome stuff today about it. To go back to what Annapurna Subramaniam had said earlier about eclipses from other stars, I also want to kind of tell people about eclipses within the solar system itself. There are some beautiful videos taken by satellites, our own satellites in space, of the solar eclipse in both directions. What I mean is there's some amazing videos of satellites which are imaging the Earth, and you can see this fuzzy shadow of the moon going across the Earth's surface taken from space, and it's just amazing. So please do go search for it online. There are quite a few of them. But then there are also videos taken by solar telescopes in space, like High Node and so on, which actually look at the sun and then photograph the solar eclipse, and that's just completely different from how it looks like to us. And those are, I think, those are two very different views of the solar eclipse from what we used to. I think people should go Google them and find out. But I also recently discovered, I thought it was fantastic, that we have a tiny little car or a vehicle on Mars called Curiosity rover, launched by NASA long back. And Mars has satellites going around it. Like we have the moon, it has two satellites, Phobos and Deimos. Phobos is a bit bigger than Deimos. And Curiosity rover actually has taken images of Phobos eclipsing not completely the sun, but a large part of the sun as seen from Mars. And there's some time-lapse videos you can see online. So I thought that's really cool that not only do we know eclipses from Earth's surface, we have seen eclipses from space of the Earth, or falling on the Earth, but we also now have a video of a solar eclipse from the moon by its own satellite. I think it's really cool, So from Mars, by its own satellite. I thought people should go see that as well.
Thanks, Neeraj. I mentioned earlier, I think people who missed, I will mention again that eclipses happen with many planet and satellite systems. So sometimes the satellite is quite big as compared to the size of apparent size of sun from the planet. So you see total eclipses. Sometimes satellites are quite small as compared to the apparent size. So you can see partial eclipses and annular eclipses, but not total eclipses in those cases. Earth Moon is a unique system where we are able to see both total eclipses as well as annular eclipses. The size of lunar disk as we see from Earth and size of solar disk as we see from Earth, they are just almost similar. So with a slight variation in Moon's orbital distance from Earth, we can see both the phenomena from Earth.
Yeah, and I think one thing to realize is that it's not just during an eclipse that the shadows happen, right? All objects in the solar system shine by sunlight reflected off them, and therefore all bodies in the solar system have their shadows traveling behind them all the time, right? It's not as if the shadow of the moon exists only during a solar eclipse. The shadow of the moon goes behind the moon all the time. The shadow of the Earth goes behind the Earth all the time as they go around the sun, right? And sometimes these shadows fall on each other's bodies, other objects as well, fall on each other, and that's when you have eclipses. we've been looking at, for example, it's been for hundreds of years, we've been seeing the shadows of Jupiter satellites fall on Jupiter, for example, right? And in fact, there was a famous experiment where the timing of these eclipses on Jupiter by its own satellites led Romer to derive the speed of light very accurately, right? And therefore these shadows, every body in the solar system has its shadow, which goes along with it all the time. You can't escape your own shadow, like people say. And these shadows sometimes fall on other objects. That's pretty much it. Nothing more than that. But when it does occur and you're in the shadow, it makes for an amazing, beautiful sight, like we are seeing right now.
In fact, it might be a good thing to imagine how things would look like on the moon. Suppose you're on the moon on a lunar eclipse, and then we would have a total eclipse of the sun by the Earth, which would be actually quite a spectacular event. But we are lucky that we have the moon, which can cover the sun 100% and for quite a bit most of the time. Today, of course, we had only the annular eclipse in which a slight ring was seen. Now in China, we see that the moon is almost about to cover the sun, and we may want to keep looking at that field. While waiting for it, of course, we have so many scientists here who also guide a lot of students here. So while he's here, may I ask Dipankar to maybe say something about careers in astrophysics or solar physics, since it is your specialty. Lots of interest listening in. So
yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So I think this is very important subject area. How to attract the most bright students for generally for research, and then that too for astrophysics, because astrophysics is not taught in in undergraduate or postgraduate studies that much. But that's not actually too much required as well, because astrophysics is not a very different branch of physics. It is an application of physics only. So only thing, the awareness about the possibilities of different institutions and the different kind of research programs. In that, of course, solar physics is the branch which I work, and the BINDU is also online. We have been, attracted to quite early. But having said that, when I joined the PhD program, I had no knowledge about the sky or for the sun at all. Somehow, after doing the first year coursework and so on and so forth, we felt, some of us felt that, solar physics is a good branch to, verify some of your knowledge of physics. So there are now opportunities within India. Of course, Ayuka leads this information to the different university sector, being a university nodal center. And some of us who are there in somewhat isolated research center, we take this as a big responsibility to let others know that such opportunities exist. In a way, what you have organized today, thanks to Astronomical Society of India. And I must thank actually Neeraj, who was the first driver of this program. And now you are, Samir and Aniket, you are taking the baton forward. These are very important avenue as well. So through your platform, the public outreach and education. So this is an integrated program actually. We could now reach to youngsters, and there are many research institutes within the country who offers PhD program. There are certain institutes who offer also integrated PhD programs, and they're all available. So that I think it's a good opportunity.
Having annularity in China, in the China field. So this.
All right. Okay.
Just wanted to point that out to people. It's being made full screen now, of course, and please enjoy that.
Yeah. I will just go out and see the last phase of the eclipse from outside. So we are still having a last phase now from next.
Yes, of course.
Samir, I have to unfortunately leave now because I have another engagement. So I wanted to say bye to you and to all of you and Aniket, who particularly put in this effort to do this. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you, and I hope that we've been able to reach out in a way that we provide some excitement of what we are involved in about sciences to the general public. And I hope that some of these people who have been listening to us today at some point in time will come visit our institutions. Ayuka does a fantastic job of outreach.
We are going into the annularity ring right now in China.
Right.
And we can actually see the moon slowly moving across the sun. It's an amazing sight. Let's all enjoy, and then you leave. We won't let you go before that.
Yeah, because it's not often that I think we can actually see something in the sky moving, which we can perceive directly, right? And now for the next 2-3 minutes, you can visualize the moon actually moving in the sky, and I think that's amazing. That's very special.
Right. We only know it moves 13 degrees in a day, but this is the real thing. So if you look at the sky now, and maybe after an hour or 2 hours, you can see things that moved. Sun has moved, stars have moved, but to actually perceive directly the motion, every few seconds is very rare, and this is probably the only way we can actually do that. And I think that's brilliant. Now it's a perfect ring. The edge is coming. Edge of the moon is coming close to the edge of the sun. Lovely capture and a very good capture. And we may happen to see the Bailey's beads.
So we've seen the annular eclipse now 3 times so far, 4 actually, and maybe we'll do one more in Taiwan after a little bit.
It's absolutely fantastic, this feed from China.
Breathtaking. Just waiting for the Bailey's beads. There you go. Just a tiny bit of the sun now remaining till the 3rd contact, and there it is. Okay, so the moon has passed across the sun's lit up face, and this is the biggest crescent that you will see in the sky. This gives us the correct reason why we call it annular. Annular means a ring of, let's say, fire, or we could, as solar physicists say, a ring of fusion that we are seeing out there on the of the sun's face, hidden by our own satellite, the moon, which is by coincidence about 400 times smaller than the sun, while it is also 400 times closer than the sun to us. So this ratio puts it at the perfect place to let us see this amazing sight in the sky. And the eclipses do happen often, and you know that there was a annular eclipse seen from India in December, and you're seeing one right now. But other than that, this month itself has had 3 eclipses, 2 lunar and 1 solar. And this is more because the sun and the moon and the earth need to be aligned in a proper line, and that happens only during certain periods when the orbital plane of the moon coincides with the orbital plane of the earth around the sun. So this is what we are seeing happening right now. This is moon at the node where the plane of the moon's orbit cuts the Earth's orbit around the sun. And we've just seen the result of that lovely coincidence happening here. An annular solar eclipse has just been witnessed, and we've, through this feed, witnessed it so many times. So I can't feel far more exhilarated by any other thing on the internet now, I think.
There's one more annular eclipse coming from Taiwan soon.
So
I remember seeing a lovely picture. I forget which year. There was a picture, I think, from the US a few years ago, where a partial eclipse like this was, the sun was rising as a partial eclipse, and this photograph was taken from a highway in the middle of nowhere, right? And then you could get these horns, like partial eclipse rising up, and it was just beautiful.
Yes, so astrophotography is something you can revel in, especially during eclipses, because it's an unearthly sight, and if it's particularly happening close to the horizon, you can get amazing, zoomed in shots of the sun.
Very earthly sight.
Well, yes, it's actually an only earthly sight.
Right.
Right. Any reactions, Professor Rai Chaudhary?
No, great. I mean, I was looking through social media right now for people posting pictures of their experiences. It's absolutely amazing and overwhelming. And I love the way, I mean, as Neeraj also said before, that he's sitting in South Africa, I'm sitting here in Pune, and we are watching the same eclipse progress all through the world, which is not where we are. And through the social media, we can see all this. This is absolutely fantastic. I'm waiting for the Taiwan view. But people doing things in very creative ways, looking at taking pictures, both through the internet as well as going out. If you look at astrophotography, you talked about people, as I said, doing various innovative things with pinhole cameras. I told earlier about how you can use the gaps between the leaves on the ground, and people producing wonderful pictures of them. Here in Ayuka, we have a dome in which we have these holes that represent stars, and those pinholes in the dome have produced lovely crescent sun images on the ground. We just looking at the pictures from Dorje Angchuk from Hanle, not just producing this lovely feed, but he's produced these lovely pictures of creatively crafted masks of pinholes, and then have projecting pictures of those on the ground. Lovely, lovely, wonderful. So this is, social media is just full. Instagram, you will just see how many pictures are coming of people's own experiences. And this is where, I mean, we're talking of 1980. Somebody said here that they were not allowed. I mean, Neeraj said, and other people said, we're not allowed to go out to watch this. This is not just in India, all over the world. People were afraid of watching eclipses. Now, if your mother doesn't want to let you go out of the house, switch on the internet, you can watch the eclipse. I just was on a TV channel fighting with an astrologer and a tantric who were saying that pregnant women should not watch the eclipse. I said, what do they do at night when you have a shadow of the earth, right? So, this is the kind of thing. So these things bring the universe into our lives on these rare occasions. And I love that. I love the fact that people are engaging with the sun and the moon and the universe right now. That's the best thing here.
And as you mentioned that we are watching from different continents and we are getting feeds from different continents, the International Astronomical Union's theme, Under One Sky, really comes alive in such moments.
Aniket, I wanted to also mention one quick thing before I go, and that is, it's eclipse are featured in literature quite a lot. I mean, you and I can think of our favorite stories, or the famous Tintin, of course, Prisoner of the Sun, when Tintin, gets off because he knows exactly when the eclipse is. That is taken essentially from a Mark Twain novel called, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, where the same thing happens. If you know when, so eclipses play wonderful, in fiction as well. In our myths, I was thinking about whether we remember incidences like the eclipse from the Mahabharata, where when Jayadratha dies, for example, the sun is eclipsed probably. And wonderful thing was we saw an eclipse from Kurukshetra today, right? So and so think of the connections between a possible solar eclipse that happened probably during the Kurukshetra war and today. So eclipses are in our lives, in our myths, in our fiction, in our stories, in our things, when people go out on occasions like this and actually experience the real thing. And I think it's much larger than life, much larger than what we do as scientists studying these things. It just connects people to these events.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that this feed also helped us to see how it was changing from the western part. It went on to we had almost close to annular eclipse in Hanle, and then moved on, and then as and when the time changes, it moved on to the east. So it's not like it's happening throughout the region at the same time. So you can see the progression, and you can see that as and when the angle, when the Earth is rotating, so different parts get the umbra. So that is when you have the eclipse happening. So we understand, I mean, if you think about why it is happening, it's also a particular occasion to analyze why this is happening. So in real terms, where are these bodies located? What are their dynamics makes it happen? So everyone has to be more curious to understand why is it happening. So here in this demonstration itself, we saw that we had close to totality at different regions at different times. So I really urge people to think more on various aspects of it.
I also wanted to add in this that it is great that we could make such right now that we can predict eclipses to great accuracy. We know exactly when they will happen, where they will happen. In fact, you can go to some websites which even give the predictions for hundreds of years from today, right? And so this tells us how we have been able to understand this physical phenomena, understand all the parameters that are required in order to even predict what is going to happen in the future.
Right, and I'll just draw your attention to with this to the feeds on the from the various places that we have. We had our good luck to see the Chinese annular ring right now. The one at the bottom from Taipan is not going to be annular, and so it has just passed its maximum phase. It's going to be a nice crescent, but it's too south to be an annular eclipse. At the Hanle feed, you can see that the moon is slowly just going off the face. So that's kind of bringing us close to the end of this lovely session, which has seen all of you participating with such enthusiasm and sharing with the viewers and maybe their families who are also watching along the minute aspects and the important learnings from the eclipses. So we could just wait a little bit more, and maybe I could ask any of you if you want to point out any particular astronomical event other than an eclipse which you would like people to see and which is coming up in the near future.
So, I mean, Venus and Mercury transits are beautiful as well, right? I need to check when it's going to come next.
Not Venus transit, but Venus is not going to come near future, but
lifetime.
Right. Yeah, but no, these are beautiful. That's what I'm saying. These are one of the amazing phenomena that you can see when the disk of these planets it moves on top of the sun. But eclipses of the moons of Jupiter, right? Those are really beautiful. Like if you have even a 6-inch telescope, Ayuka has all these programs where you can actually grind your own telescopes. And so if you have a 6-inch telescope, I have done it myself as well. You can look at Jupiter, and if you're looking at it at the right time, then you can see the shadow of a moon sliding around the disk of Jupiter as well. So right now you cannot get a view of how it would be looking for someone from outside and looking on the Earth, how the shadow of the moon is moving around the Earth. But you can see something like this if you are going to look at the eclipse phenomena happening for the Jupiter and its moon system.
That's a full curve here. That's where we slowly.
So we have the last contact at Hanle. The moon has exited the solar disk.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that you can see a clear sun, no spots. The sun is not at all active now, so it's very quiet sun. And its full disk is so clean. No blemishes.
Amazing that our viewers watched the entire Hanle feed from the beginning to the end. And it's been wonderful there. I think there were no clouds at all.
There were a couple of minutes close to the maximum, like a few minutes there were some passing clouds. Beyond that, I mean, besides that, it was quite clear, and also the feed didn't break, so that's also very good.
So we thank you for getting us this feed from one of the best places in India to do astronomy research from, in fact.
Yeah, and we also have a very strong team. They're very motivated team, so that really makes a difference.
Right. So we really appreciate all the efforts that everybody has put into making these feeds possible for everybody to see and enjoy from their homes, not just because of superstitions, but because of this particular the ailment that has been going around these days. People have been at home and getting frustrated because there's hardly anything new happening and they want to go out. But yes, we could bring this to their houses, to their homes. They have also been participating in various activities that they themselves can do while they are listening to us. So they've projected the images of the sun onto their walls, onto their corners of their houses, through their windows, onto other people's houses maybe. And they've used sieves and other things to see these beautiful shapes made out of small crescents. So it's been a great experience and everybody had fun. We've had around 5,000 viewers at the peak of this, and that's probably just if we add all the other people who are watching with them, that would be a much higher number. So this has been a relatively successful feed. And I also have two team members, Ishan and Atharva, who are working in the background, combining all these feeds and getting all these things correctly placed, etc. on the feed. So I thank them as well. They are part of the Ayuka Science Popularization team. We also have a group of other team members who are working online, who are constantly answering questions. They are from the Ayuka SciPop team as well as from the Astronomical Society of India's POAC team. So it's been a great effort, and I know it's slightly sad that we all wish to go to the annularity belt and see it for ourselves, but then we did experience it 3-4 times on this feed. So that's, I think, good enough for now. And I would, of course, like to thank everyone for taking out their time, enjoying this with us, being here for so long, and also for sharing some tea and snacks with us while you were here. That's perfectly okay to do. And now we are all probably looking to go for lunch. So with that, and if there are any other final comments, I would like to slowly bring this session to an end. Aniket, you have final words, and others also are welcome to say something.
Thanks to everybody, all the panelists who took out time on a Sunday morning to spend this time with us and also answer various questions from the audience. So it is not just one institute or two institutes, it's a multi-institutional effort. You can see participation from many different institutes and across the country, different parts of the country. So our Indian astronomy community always works together on such projects, and we would continue doing so in the future as well.
Yeah, I also would like to thank the IAA outreach team and teams at various field stations to bring in all the feeds, and it is like the control room in the auditorium to bring everything and make sure that things work. So yeah. Thanks
very much. Thanks, Aniket and Samir, for hosting this all together. And
Priya, it was very nice and
wonderful. And the entire team, Neeraj, wonderful idea. And I think this gives us a template for how we can do such things in the future, bringing in people from all over the country. And in various stages, we can do all-day events if you want on such occasions. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks everybody for organizing it. I know a lot of work went into the background. I know, like Samir mentioned, people whose faces we're not seeing were sitting at the back, making sure all this is possible. So thanks, everybody. And also, we like doing this because people give back our enthusiasm 100-fold, right? And like Samir mentioned, there are thousands of people who are online and I've been looking at the comments all along, and there's a lot of enthusiasm and interest from the people who are watching it about what we did, and also they want to know more, right? And it is that enthusiasm and interest from the people who like what we're doing, that wants us to, that makes us want to do many more such events. So, we kind of hopefully feed off each other's excitement about this, because eclipses are after all, astronomers can study eclipses historically, but eclipses are for the people, it's for everybody, not just scientists, it's for the public at large, and it's a grand global science festival. Every eclipse is a global science festival, and I think I'm very happy to be a part of it. Thanks.
It's a biannual festival, so you can continue doing it.
Like all festivals, it will come again. Yeah.
Also, like the multilingual aspect of today's program, I think we covered about 10 languages or so.
So that was a really good thing to do.
Very good. And thanks, Surut. That was fantastic.
Well, I also hope that this actually helps to inspire many of these students who may be listening in, and also their parents, to get their kids into astronomy. And we will be very, very happy to welcome both male, female, all sorts of castes and creeds, everyone into astronomy. This is a unifying field. And we want to see you come up and to study astronomy, do research in all these institutes, and to join us as panelists in the next eclipse at some point. Thanks.
So yes, Priya had to leave, and she's been also coordinating part of this activity. So she says goodbye to everyone. Well, I have to end by acknowledging the presence of Professor Jayan Narlikar, who's been one of the best scientists and science popularizers of the country. And I remember seeing such a feed about 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, in fact. The time has passed. And seeing him on TV live doing a very similar thing. And it's been an aspiration to do the same. And I'm glad that this chance has come to us. I hope this doesn't continue, that we have to do everything online forever because of various kinds of new viruses that keep coming up. But this has definitely been great experience. And we have learned so much about technology, not just of seeing the eclipses, but also showing eclipses and sharing a lot of science with people. We will keep continuing doing this. The ASI POEC and IUCA SciPop and all the members from IAA outreach team also, and the other groups who have taken efforts to go out in the field and show us these feeds. We promise that we'll keep bringing you all these events, whatever happens, and we'll keep inspiring you and sharing with you all these excitements forever. So with that, let me close this session. And we'll keep showing you the Hanle, lovely sun from Hanle, which has now completely gotten rid of the moon. So keep enjoying this, and we'll join you again. Do subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to many more resources that we share online with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Solar eclipses, especially in India, have had associated with them many myths. One of them being that one should not sleep during the eclipse time. The reason given being that if you sleep, it will cause diseases or any other health ill effects. Now we can try and analyze this from a scientific viewpoint and understand why this understanding doesn't have any scientific basis and is just pure superstition. So sun, if we look at the system like sun and earth, and we are living on earth, question is, how does sun impact us? Sun can impact us in everyday life in three ways. One, we feel the effect of gravitational force of sun, because of which earth along with us is rotating around. The other thing is there is a light that we are receiving from sun, which causes day and night. And the third minor way in which sun affects us is from the particles that sun ejects, which reaches our atmosphere, and that has some impact on Earth system. Now, if we look at solar eclipse as such, there's no change as such in terms of the gravitational force that we're experiencing from sun. In terms of light, one can think of the solar eclipse as sort of like night time. So nighttime doesn't have any effect on human health, as we know. So there's no reason why we should think that there should be effect of a solar eclipse on our health because of darkness caused by it. The third part being what about the particles? In fact, when solar eclipse happens, the number of particles that is reaching Earth from sun reduces because the moon is blocking a major part of it. So if you look at this solar eclipse in terms of these three viewpoints, then one reaches a conclusion that there is no reason why solar eclipses will affect our health. If we sleep or we don't sleep, basically it doesn't have any impact on our daily health. Doesn't matter what we do. It's like any other day. So people should do what they do normally instead of bothering about what will happen if eclipse is happening right now. Since solar eclipses have no bad effect on human affairs of health or anything else, and it's a beautiful spectacle of nature that we get to see once in a few years, I would suggest everybody to reach out to the science community centers, whichever is near you, and watch this event and enjoy it.
Welcome everybody to this special session on the annular solar eclipse coming up on 21st June, which would be the next Sunday. We are here from the Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, and I am Sameer Dhurde, and I'm joined by my colleague Sonal Thorve here to discuss some aspects of the eclipse, how to see it, what are the scientific and historical significances of eclipses in the past and the present, and also to give you lots of details about if you are in the belt of the eclipse, how to see it, and if you are watching anywhere else from India, what to do so that you can enjoy this beautiful, spectacular event. So we've devised this session in a way that it will be like a discussion rather than try to emphasize certain aspects and certain concepts of the eclipse through various demos and diagrams and activities. In fact, if you're a teacher or a student, you could in fact find out ways in which you could yourself do some study during the eclipse which is happening, and rather than succumbing to all the superstitions and all the bad things which are being rumored about the eclipse so that you don't see it, rather than that you should actually go out and actually do something. You can do some productive work, and of course